Hey, I'm Jusko from ProudMoney.com. Which credit card companies have the best customer service and which have the worst customer service? We are going to discuss, but first I'm going to ask you to please subscribe to this YouTube channel if you have not already, and if you have already, I thank you for doing so. Also, new feature here on this YouTube channel, a lot of others, you can give your host a little tip if you are so inclined using that thank you or thanks heart below the video, and I'll give you a little extra love in the comments. Not that much love, but maybe a little extra love. Anyway, best credit card customer service, worst credit card customer service. Somebody actually said in the comments that I should do this video within the last week, and my initial reaction was, well, it's hard to be objective about who has the best and worst customer service, because if you have one bad experience with a company, you can decide that that is the whole company and now you hate them. And I said to the person, every time I do a video about a specific credit card company, there's somebody that comes into the comments and says, they are the worst, terrible customer service, you shouldn't even talk about them. And then, you know, I do another company and somebody says the same thing. So if you have a bad experience with one, you might think they're terrible, where somebody else that has always had good experiences think they're great. And then the credit card company that you think is really good, somebody else thinks is terrible because they've had one bad experience with them. So it is hard to be totally objective, but there is one source that I would say is somewhat objective, and that is the annual J.D. Power survey, the credit card customer satisfaction survey. Now, it's not strictly customer service based, but a lot of the aspects to it are customer service. So every year, J.D. Power, which is a research and consulting company, does this survey. You've probably heard of them. And they ask a bunch of questions to a whole bunch of people about their experiences with the different credit card issuers, both the huge ones that are the big banks that we think of, and then some of the mid-size regional banks, all that kind of stuff. And then they put out a report on that and say who's got the best satisfaction and who has the worst. So we're going to look at those numbers from last year. So the last time there was a survey out was August of 2021 as I make this video. And so we're going to look at those results, and then I would love to hear your thoughts in that comment section below. So let's look at those numbers, those rankings, then I'll talk a little bit more about the methodology they used. First, the large issuers, number one on the ranking list, American Express. Now, they use a 1,000-point scale in coming up with these rankings, and American Express scored 838 points out of 1,000. Right behind them, and I would say almost the same, is Discover at 837 points. So 838, 837, almost the same score, really, especially out of a 1,000-point scale. And then number three, Capital One, down a little bit at 815 points. Now, the average score across all the large issuers was 809, so I would consider those three to be the ones that were considered above average in this survey. With 809 being the average, we then have three big banks that were almost right there with the average, a couple points less, but they are the sort of big names that you might expect to be right around that average. Chase at 807, Bank of America and Citi at 805. And then the issuers that I would say got scores below average, Barclays, Wells Fargo, Synchrony, and US Bank. So US Bank, sort of the worst of what I consider sort of the big banks that offer a lot of cards to a lot of different people. And then really bringing up the rear, way down there in the basement, is Credit One, far below all the rest in terms of their score. Now, I'm certainly not going to talk up Credit One here, but in some ways it's a little unfair to compare Credit One to some of these others, because Credit One serves mostly a customer with worse credit scores, and they charge a lot of fees and have high interest, and you kind of know all this going in, and so your satisfaction with a card that is really not that great to begin with is usually not going to be very high. So it's no surprise, and I would love to hear all your comments about Credit One in the comments section. Certainly not defending them, but not sure if that's a fair comparison either. And then as a little addendum to the national issuers, USAA is sort of put off on the side with a score of 860, which would be better than any of them. They would be far away the number one, but J.D. Power puts them sort of in their own category because of the fact that they are a membership credit card that only some people can get their hands on. So they're not sort of open to everyone there. But USAA getting a very high score. You might wonder where Navy Federal Credit Union is here. They lump them in with the mid-sized banks, which I'm not really quite sure why, but they do very well also, which we will get to in a second. Now looking at the mid-size issuers, the number one on the list may be sort of an anomaly. We will see as time goes on because it is Goldman Sachs. And as this survey was being done, the only credit card Goldman Sachs issuing, the Apple cards. So far fewer Apple cards out there than some of these banks that have been in the credit card game for a while and have multiple cards and, you know, maybe have had more time to have their customers be dissatisfied with them. So I don't want to take anything away from Goldman Sachs. Very high score, 864 out of 1,000. And then dropping down quite a bit, you've got a bunching of BB&T, which is now part of Truist, merged with SunTrust, and then you have Huntington and PNC all together. And then you can see we can go down the list. You got Regions Bank, Fifth Third, TD Bank, FNBO, some other issuers there as well. Far down in the basement from the smaller issuers, Premier Bank Card, also known as First Premier, one of the cards that I have consistently said I do not like. And even though maybe I would say, since I already said this for Credit One, to try to be fair, that First Premier is serving a very different customer than some of these other banks, First Premier is just bad. And then finally, like USAA on that large lenders list, Navy Federal Credit Union is put with the mid-sized lenders, but it is put sort of off to the side because of the fact that it is a membership required institution, but has the highest customer satisfaction score of any of the institutions at 866. And based on the many comments, whenever I talk about Navy Federal Credit Union on this channel, the love just comes pouring out. So I would love to hear how your thoughts and experiences jibe with those rankings. Put that in the comments below. Now, if you're interested a little bit more in the methodology, how they came up with these numbers, J.D. Power used 6 factors, and I'm sure there were multiple questions within these, but 6 factors, and some of these were very customer service focused in terms of like dealing with customer service. Some of these are a little bit more like satisfaction with the products that are provided. So it's not purely customer service, which is why it's customer satisfaction, but I think a lot of these are important. So the 6 factors are benefits and services, communication, credit card terms, interaction, key moments, and rewards. Now these numbers are the latest survey as I make this video, but they actually, in terms of when they did the surveying of people, they talked to almost 28,000 people from September of 2020 to June of 2021. So we're sort of like full on pandemic here when a lot of stuff was going on in the credit card industry and a lot of stuff going on obviously in the world in general. So they say the scores actually slipped this time versus the prior year's survey, which is no surprise, and the smaller lenders, or what they call the mid-sized lenders, actually were hurt more in the customer satisfaction surveys, which also kind of makes sense because they have fewer workers, and if there are problems or whatever, they probably have fewer people to deal with them. Although I would say probably everyone during the pandemic would say that customer service kind of went downhill. A lot of people sometimes, you know, calling in and sitting for 2 hours on the phone trying to talk to somebody. That's it. Hit me with those comments or go to proudmoney.com where we do credit card reviews and talk personal finance and talk deals and all sorts of other fun stuff too. Or watch this video next.